March 2011. An earthquake off the coast of Japan triggers a deadly tsunami, killing more than 15,000 people. Waves swamped Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO's, Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant complex. Huge explosions followed, and ultimately meltdowns of 3 of the 6 nuclear reactors, spewing radioactive material into the atmosphere. Into this unknown sailed the USS Ronald Reagan, an American nuclear-powered supercarrier with more than 5,000 sailors and Marines on board. The carrier was a key part of the U.S. Navy's Operation Tomodachi, the Japanese word for friends. And now, 3 years later, more than 70 sailors and Marines from that mission have filed a billion-dollar lawsuit against TEPCO, alleging the company withheld information that led to radiation exposure, causing illness, even cancer. Medical experts are skeptical of a connection, but the cases are heartbreaking. Lindsay Cooper and Kim Geiseking both served on the Reagan and said since they've gotten back, they face debilitating thyroid issues. Thomas McCants was on the USS Germantown in July 2011 when it responded to Japan. When he returned, he told CNN he was diagnosed with leukemia. And then there's Navy officer Steve Simmons, who served on the Reagan. Before he set sail, he was an avid hiker in the mountains of Hawaii.
What was your health like in the months leading up to deployment?
The summer of 2010, when we pulled into Hawaii, I was actually out doing trail runs. A couple days later, I went and hiked Diamond Head, and the following day from Diamond Head, I actually went and hiked Stairway to Heaven.
But Simmons says something happened to him off the coast of Japan. A year after returning to the U.S., he lost all function in his legs.
What do doctors think is wrong with you?
No idea.
They don't know.
They have no idea.
2 moments during his deployment stick out to Simmons. At one point, the ship stopped taking in water from the sea and purifying it because of contaminants. He had already had some of it to drink that day.
The water feeds everything, the showers, the water faucets, the soda machines.
How serious is it when water has to be secured because they picked up contaminants? Had that ever happened to you before?
Yep, this was a first. I think this was a first for everybody on board.
The Reagan also sailed through the post-meltdown nuclear plume for hours, leading to this thorough decontamination. The ship locked down the ventilation system, Simmons said. That account fits with the prior reporting by CNN's Bill Weir, who tried to get on the ship for a story and was waved off by commanders citing radiation concerns. The Navy declined our interview request because of the pending litigation, but in a statement, a spokesman said, quote, "There is no indication that any U.S. personnel supporting Operation Tomodachi experienced radiation exposure at levels associated with the occurrence of long-term health effects." The Navy acknowledged the ship sailed through the nuclear plume, but disputed a key point in the lawsuit. The complaint alleges that the Reagan was operating 2 miles off the coast. The Navy told CNN repeatedly the Reagan was operating approximately 100 miles out to sea. There was great concern from the Navy. CNN's Martin Savage was on board the Reagan during part of its month-long deployment. His team, like the sailors and Marines, went through constant radiation testing and decontamination after being on deck.
When your superiors tell you, okay, we secured the ventilation system, or we can go back to using water from the ocean, it's safe now, how confident are you that everything is okay?
There was some misleading information that was given, not from the standpoint of Navy or DOD. That information that we were using to make decisions was all being fed from Japan and TEPCO.
In response to our questions about the suit, the power company issued a statement thanking the U.S. for its aid, but adding, quote, "We withhold any comments on this lawsuit and we will take appropriate measures in accordance with the judicial procedures in the United States." TEPCO has until April to respond in court. There is no question Simmons' health has radically deteriorated since his time on the Reagan. But why? Cham Dallas, the director of the Institute for Disaster Management at the University of Georgia, is a respected radiation expert who has led 7 expeditions to Fukushima.
I think that there was probably some exposure to radiation on the USS Ronald Reagan, but saying some manifests to many people that any exposure to radiation is going to be dangerous. That is actually not the case.
Dallas said the Navy's calculations suggest the radiation exposure of the sailors and Marines was about the same as taking a transatlantic flight, or not very much. He says health effects from radiation, such as cancer, take years or even decades to show up. For Dallas and other experts CNN consulted, these illnesses have happened too soon to have been as a result of the exposure at Fukushima.
You have an exposure to radiation, and then there's a pause. There's a certain period of time before the health effects start to come.
So what is the reason dozens of sailors and Marines exposed to radiation are having these health problems? Does the Navy and do these experts know everything that went on at Fukushima? Getting to the truth cannot come quickly enough for Steve and Summer Simmons.
Let's say there's somebody watching this report and they say, look, I'm really sorry that you're going through what you're going through, but the Navy and the Pentagon don't think that this is related to Fukushima, so maybe this isn't related at all. What would you say to them?
Time will tell.
Steve Simmons and his wife Summer, like the 78 other plaintiffs, hope time will bring compensation from TEPCO, or, at the very least, more information. Until then, the Simmons family is trying to cope as best they can, going so far as to reshoot the memories of their big wedding day, so those pictures are no longer a reminder of what once was.
We retook our wedding pictures to include the chair because we wanted to be able to look forward instead of looking back, and we wanted our wedding photos to be what we are.
Simmons is in the process of being honorably discharged from the Navy for medical reasons. He continues to wait for a diagnosis so he and his family can sort out what their next step should be. The budget bill that Congress passed last month demands that the Pentagon provide Congress a full accounting for the health of all those who served on the USS Ronald Reagan.